Hello, welcome to the Blindsided Podcast, episode 20. And today we're talking about To Thine Own Self Be True. And we're going to break it down, talk about some principles, how to take a deeper dive into that. I don't know if we'll ever get to the bottom of it because that's a wonderful principle that Shakespeare gave us. My name is Charlie Collins. I'm a co-host of the Blindsided Podcast. I am a speaker, a coach, and I am a published author, living my best life I can for today.
Morning, Charlie. Hi, Stan. My name is Brenda. I'm the founder of TimeForAttend.com. What we do is we help people inventory their disturbances to get at the exact nature of their conditioned thinking. And I'm also co-host of the Blindsided Podcast. And we're so excited to have Stan the Man with us today.
Good morning, Brenda and Charlie. It's a pleasure to be here and join you again. I always have fun and I always get a lot of information that I can implement, practices that I can put into my life through your podcast. So thank you for the invitation again. And I'm Stanley Dietrich with 360 Life Without Limits. I am a peak performance coach, and I work with the brain, the mind, the body, and also what you're putting into your body. So those are some of the things that I do, and I'm excited to be here and talk about this topic that we have today. Drum roll, please.
All right. I don't know how that happened. That's why I was reaching across the desk. Yes, thank you, Stanley and Brenda. This was first I learned that Shakespeare put it into play Hamlet, and Polarius, I don't know the name of the father, sat with his son and said he was going to Paris. Moving or something there, and he said, this principle you need to take with you, which will guide you through your journey where you live in a life of success, thriving, and service to others, and it is to thine own self be true. And that, I'm like, that is pretty powerful. Also, in the AA recovery program, each year, people that stay sober get a medallion. And the medallion is a nice coin type thing. You know what a medallion is. And on the back of that is this tenet. They called To Thy Own Self Be True. And without that, probably that program won't work for you. Without that, probably the program of action to change your physical health through eating or exercise won't happen. If you're struggling in your mind and making decisions and just moving your life forward, probably without To Thy Own Self Be True, that will be a very difficult journey. And there's a pain that we all need to have in our life. We're going to have it no matter what. It's the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. And even though we can take this is simple, whatever that button is at Staples, and move more towards pleasure and doing things to avoid the pain that we may be feeling. And to thy own self be true. That is not the principle's meaning. Eat, don't do, watch lots of whatever that is for each person. And I just feel that I think I know what we're going to do. We're going to try to uncover, discard. So we'll look at the problem. And then we'll, instead of what activates in us normally is, well, I blame. It's not me. It's outside. It's those people. It's the government. It's the lights in my house. It's the rain today. So, well, first we got to look at that. And then we admit that, okay, I take responsibility. This is my problem. This isn't outside of me. To thy own self be true. And then maybe I need to ask for help to put a plan of action, or I'm not sure how to move from this to a better version of me. And I might need to hire a coach. I might need to do whatever I need to do. But once we get into that, once we admit, the rest kind of starts falling into place.
I love this topic, Charlie. I'm so glad you brought it here today. When I think of thine own self be true, in fact, when I first saw the back of that AA coin where it says to thine own self be true, I thought, oh, that's so selfish. And I felt it was really hard for me to take that in, because with the substance use disorder, I felt like I had been being selfish for a really long time and not addressing that. So then I get in there and it says to thine own self be true. So I was really confused about what that meant, to thine own self be true. And it's almost like, they tell you on an airplane when the oxygen mask falls to put the mask on yourself first before putting it on anybody else. So I kind of think of it in those terms. I have to be honest with myself. I have to be truthful. I have to take care of my own needs first before I start taking care of others. But what it means to me too, which is really important, is don't say yes to things that I really don't want to do, right? Because that is dishonest and that's not being true to myself. And the majority of my resentments in life came because I said yes to something that I really wanted to say no to. And then I had a resentment before I had to do whatever that thing was, whether it was a commitment or going to a party or helping a friend out. I had a resentment before. So for the whole time leading up to it, a resentment during doing it. And then I held on to that resentment for pretty much a long time afterwards. So when I do the to thine own self be true, I say yes when I mean yes. I say no when I mean no, and nothing in between. And it saves me all of that, just that muck that goes on in between when I'm being dishonest.
Yeah, I like that. And when I think about this statement, I think about who is the person that's in the mirror. So that's the person that I got to be true to. So there's no other reflection. There's no other pictures. I don't have anybody else's pictures on my mirror. And so each day I'm comparing myself to me. I'm not comparing myself to somebody else because I don't know what it is that they've experienced or what they've gone through. So comparing myself to myself as to where I was yesterday and to thy own self be true is that I am putting that marker and going, what can I do? What can I do better? Or how can I be better than I was the day before? And not get into this self-deprivation of comparing myself to, let's just say, Tony Robbins or Jack Canfield or Les Brown, some of the big names, because I don't know all the things that they went through. I know what I went through, what I've gone through, and what I'm going through. So if I can take some of those things and go, how can I implement an element to take myself to the place that I want to be? And then I don't get into this imposter syndrome, and I can actually enjoy who I am and where I'm at in the moment.
And Stanley, when we compare, if I compare myself to another person, most of the time I'm less than. And it's like, why do I do that? Maybe if they're living a life based on excellent principles and they're successful, maybe learn from them instead of having this feeling, I wish I could be like that. Yeah, but that guy works 15 hours a day and has for 12 straight years to get where he is. I just want it. I mean,
Right.
Why do you got to make things so dang hard? And then the other compare is I'm better than. And that one, neither are good because nobody compares and comes out even. That would be boring. So, I like that you brought that up because is it true that I need to be like somebody who's successful? No. It doesn't mean that what tactics, strategies, things they did, because I compare you to Tony Robbins and you're the same. You're just not 7 feet tall, and you don't have the marketing system put together so you can, but from content and quality and service and principles and beliefs and values, the important stuff, we got that. So I just quickly want to tell. So I went out and to my very first conference in my life in 2007. Conference as in personal development type of thing, learning that I had no idea that I never read a book up to that point, and I didn't know that there was, because I went to regular school and all that. No one ever sat down and talked to me about being true to myself and taking responsibility and believing in yourself and believing it's possible and asking for help when you need it. I didn't know any of that. I just thought you just deal with stuff. And I was in this conference and blew me away. It was Jack Canfield and someone else. And when I went to go in the second day, they had the badges outside. I probably told this, but this experience in my life has so many different outcomes of goodness. And I went to go in, I couldn't see my badge, and and I'm embarrassed and I don't want to, I'm going, oh my God, I can't believe this. And people would come and I'd just stand there and then I'd start looking up real close, scanning the table. I need to go home. I never should have come. I'm not as good as these people. They're all smarter than me. I'm just illegally blind. It just goes like that. So I finally said, ask. It's not going to kill you and you might get a no. So I asked the next person. They were very happy to help me get my name badge and I ran in. But I told that story for some weird reason to Jack Canfield on the break. See, I wasn't there ready. I hadn't seen the problem and I wasn't ready to admit it. But in that moment, he made me stand up in front of 300 people and he then coached me in front of them all. And I thought coaching was, you're being mean to me. Because what he's doing is helping me see the problem so I could admit that I'm generating it. And then I could form a plan or move through it. And, he said, so how long have you been doing this? Most of my life. Yeah. How's that working for you? He didn't say that, but he said, why do you carry this chip on your shoulder around with you everywhere? Do you think you're less than because you're legally blind? I'm like, well, duh. I'm thinking, yeah, obviously I'm less than, and he's like, so he went through the coaching with me. And then he asked, how many people in this room, if Charlie asked you for help, would you help them? And the place erupted. And he said, why do you think we're here? And I don't mean in this room. I mean on this earth, to serve, to help each other, to ask for what we want and the needs. And he went through this thing and I was like, I still didn't like him even when he was done. It took a while for that to sink in. Mm-hmm. And I went from being afraid to ever ask. I just would rather play dumb or, oh yeah, I know. Oh yeah, huh? I see, I know. Don't worry about it. I don't want you to know I don't know. So I know. And then I'd have to move. And then I moved from that and then I became an asshole. That's not a swear. And, basically just ask. If I get a no, it moves me to a yes. And when to thy own self be true, I realize I can't do something on my own, or I just want to get some guidance, some support, some help. So I ask, and that could be going out, well, not for me, on a date or have a lunch with somebody or all these things in life.
Wow. It's a great example, Charlie. I've heard you tell it before. I'm always amazed at your experience at that conference. Maybe I should go to a Jack Canfield conference. That might be good for me. So I like that you started talking about, both of you were talking about comparing. I was working with a client last week, and the client said to me, I don't understand why this person isn't behaving the way that I behave. Like, they see that I do it in this certain way, that I'm a good person, I'm a good friend, that I respond in this way. So why don't they respond the same way to me? Excuse me. Why don't they reciprocate that response to me? And what occurred to me in that moment, what was brought into my awareness to say to her was, like, how many people are on the planet? And of course, how many are there? 7-8 billion people on the planet. Can you imagine what it would be like if every single one of those people were just like you, that they responded the way you did, that they behaved the way you did, that they were thoughtful the way you're thoughtful? What kind of planet, what kind of place would it be for you to live? And immediately she said, oh, it'd be really boring. I said, yeah, not only would it be really boring, but there would be no opportunities for spiritual growth for you. You wouldn't learn anything. It's like, so the whole comparing thing, I believe, and it's my experience, it's been my experience, that media and advertising all give us this kind of foundational basis that we're supposed to compare ourselves to. If you weigh this much, if you look this way, if you have this kind of job, if you go to this university, you're okay. Like, you're acceptable. You're in the top 1% or whatever it is. If you have this much money. And none of that's true. They're just trying to sell you something. That's all they're trying to do, is sell you something. So when I look in the mirror today and I see the unique gifts that the creator of all that is has given me, the gifts that I have to work with and how I can share those gifts with other people, there's no reason to compare with anybody else. God created me in his expression as this human being, this person on this planet, to be a channel to funnel through me the gifts that he's bestowed on me. And that's it. Everybody has their own gifts to share. I hear my microphone echoing behind me. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I appreciate both of those answers. And what I take away from both of those is that nothing has any meaning except the meaning that I give it. And so if I'm true to myself, then I'm adhering to my values, my principles, my structure, my foundation. And this is where having someone on the outside of us, being able to look in and not to tell us how to live, but to tell us how we are living and how it's not connecting that link. So how do we want to live and how are we living? There's a missing piece. And this is where the value of a coach comes in, a mentor. And just like you, Charlie, being at the conference, you already had all of these elements inside of you. And what Jack was able to do was just to extrapolate that, to bring it out into the front and center. And you know, it's the same way with you, Brenda, with your client. It actually gives a ticket to freedom to be able to say, you know what, I wouldn't want the world to be, well, maybe one day a week, I'd like the world to be just like me, because then it would be a happy place, right? But the other 6 days, I need those challenges so that I can be true to myself. Because if I adopted the principles and the practices of other people, then I wouldn't be being true to myself. I'd be imitating a great original and be a cheap imitation. And I would rather be a great original than a cheap imitation. And that's what makes the flavor of life really web and flow. The ocean, the reason I love going to the ocean is because those waves go in and out and they challenge me. And so that's being true to myself.
Oh, excuse me. Excellent. So in the description of today's, and Stanley, both of you were just talking about it. What I feel like I'm off the beam. What's the beam? Well, it's a connectedness. It's a thriving success mind. It's like the day just flows nice, and it's not about how much money my being is grateful. And and but I don't know, for a long time, um I don't know, I'm feeling depressed at times, down, disconnected. I'm off course. I don't even know what on course is, but it just seemed like every road and thing I was doing was just not that easy. It's like, God, life is, it's not easy, and it's not meant to be. But you know what I mean. Once aligned and coming from the true self that I was born with, but it got blocked. I blamed my blindness. I wasn't smart enough, so I couldn't go to college. So I started stacking all the things that wasn't giving me the ability anymore to look inside and say, is this truly what you want? Is this really what you believe? Are these the people you really want to be around? But I had to do work to get to that point. I had to first again say, what's the problem? In what area of my life? And this is really cool because we don't need to go get a special degree or anything. It's already a part of who we are. We were born with it. And boy, I'll tell you, and I forget, I get busy and I'm like, ew, why did I make this? Why am I doing what I'm doing right now? It's not aligning. But, nowadays, so it's like, I ask why a lot in my mind, not that a person.
So in talking about the times that I feel off, and you described it really well, Charlie, being disconnected. And I know what that feels like to be disconnected. And in my own experience, when I'm feeling disconnected, it's because I'm living from the neck up in this really confined space. My thoughts are being triggered. There's an old tape playing. It's conditioned thinking. And it all starts with being disturbed in some way. Something usually happens that sets me off course, that just hits me the wrong way. And then I go down this path, right? Now I'm not feeling good. Well, why am I not feeling good? I start interrogating myself instead of just pausing, taking a moment, regrounding, doing some simple things to get reconnected, like calling a friend and inventorying the disturbance, which is what we do at Time for a 10. And saying, this is kind of what happened in my day. And then I started to feel really off, and I have an accountability buddy or somebody that's getting me to dig a little deeper into that. So it doesn't last a week or 2 weeks. And then I do all kinds of behaviors to try and feel better that aren't good for me. But I get rid of it in the moment, in the day that it starts to happen. Because I know instantly when I'm feeling disconnected. It's because I know what it feels like to be in my heart. I love to live there. Good things happen in there. Good things don't usually happen when I'm living up here. So in having a coach and having somebody that I can get on the phone with, talk about, that I'm feeling differently today. And that's all it needs to be. You don't even need to know why. I'm feeling differently today. Can you work with me on this? And work through why I'm feeling differently. And by the end of this session, get reconnected to the truth, because it's usually not even real or the truth that's going on. Get reconnected. And then I'm not carrying that offness throughout multiple days or weeks.
Yeah, I think when we start to feel the resistance, I'm not going to say when I say I start to feel the resistance, when I'm looking at opportunities, not every opportunity is meant for me. And it may be a very good thing for the right person. But when I start to feel lack and myself, I'm not being true to myself. So to thy own self be true is that certain opportunities are made available every single day. But which one of those are the best suited for me to not just the path that I'm going, but that create the identity of me being who I am and furthering that. Now, this is where a coach comes in and is able to challenge and say, is this really where your energy, what do you feel? What comes up? And when I ask that question, and realistic and I'm honest with myself. Is it serving me? And do I see it? Do I see my passion, my purpose, and my perseverance being invested in that long term? And if the answer is no, then that's my identity coming up, and that's being true to myself. And I can resist that. And how many times have we got into a relationship? And I'm not just talking about a personal male-female relationship. I'm talking about any kind of relationship. We've committed to a car payment, or we've committed to a house payment, or we've committed to buying something from somebody, or doing something with people that we weren't being true to ourselves. And then we go, why did I do that? Why did I go there? And that's when those little check marks come up, and we can use those as a rehearsal. And it's practice for the place that we want to go personally.
It's authenticity. It's when we are authentic, we're coming from that place. But these actions that we take. Oh, I dropped my papers. Come from that place. And then, we got to be honest with ourselves, like you said, like we're talking about. It's not that hard to figure out. Once you drop the blame thrower and you go, and you could buy a book or be careful what you read on the internet, or just watch all our podcasts over. But anyway, you don't have to go see a specialist, a coach. It is possible to read books and figure out how to determine the problem and a step-by-step to move through it. But it's much easier to do it with somebody in person or over the phone or something like that through Zoom. It's just more accountability. It really, most of my growth. Now I can read and implement things, but until I got to a mind that could be self-aware and not selfishly aware, but aware of what's taking me off course, what's making me feel off the beam, disconnected. Why does my body hurt? I just take a look at that. I'm aware. And my first thought isn't, who did this to me? It's not, it's time to go look in the mirror. Time to go and then maybe raise my hand. Sometimes I don't know. And I need to give it permission. Because if I'm honest, it's like, well, for the past 4 months, I haven't been doing something that's really starting to no longer is providing pleasure. Now it's moving into this is not working, but I can't seem to stop. And, I can just notice it during the day. Like that answer I gave wasn't coming from my true self. I just gave an answer to somebody that maybe wouldn't challenge because I didn't want to go any further with the conversation. And it's like, or I own amends for that behavior. The way what I said to Molly or something, I got to do that. It's these little, it's like, because again, the pain of regret or the pain of discipline. But the beautiful part about the pain of discipline is once it's practiced and the pain gets less and it turns into a healthy habit. But the pain of regret only gets worse.
Mm-hmm. So true, Charlie. You talked about self-awareness, and we talked earlier about rigorous honesty. And there was a statistic I think I read it yesterday or the day before, and it said something like 80% of the population isn't self-aware. They don't know really what self-awareness is. And it's kind of what you were talking about just now, Charlie. It's not having the ability. You had some moments of this, and now you recognize it. And there's many people out there that live this way, is they will have these situations where they're not telling the truth, or they're just trying to get out of a conversation with somebody, or they're saying yes when they really mean no. and they're not aware of the consequences of doing that, how that tentacles out into their life, and it becomes a kind of a habitual behavior that blocks them not only from their own authenticity, but from connecting with the authenticity of another human being. Because if you're not being honest with them, you're not receiving the honesty back in. What you put out is what you get back. That's the law of the universe. So the other risk in behaving this way is that that's what you're going to attract into your life. So becoming self-aware is actually taking the time to pause and look at the way that you take in information and respond to it. Take in the situations and respond to it. In today's world, and I'll speak for myself, it goes so fast and everything is happening so fast, and all of the systems around us are failing. So everybody, or myself, I keep saying everybody, I probably shouldn't, we're in fear, right? The political system's failing, the health system's failing, there's poison in our foods, the environment, it's all this stuff is coming in. So people are afraid. So with all of that stimulation coming in, people they're moving very quickly through life, myself included sometimes. And by holding myself accountable, by connecting with somebody on a regular basis and sharing the fear feelings that I'm having and the way that I'm responding to them and what I'm doing in my life around fear. I recently went through this thing with food with both of you. And just in coming to you and saying, I don't like the way I'm eating, I have not been able to change it on my own, will you help me do it? Just by talking to both of you about it, this whole week I changed the way I ate. Just by saying the truth, by being my authentic self, by putting the truth out there that I'm not happy with not being able to control this part of my life and I need help with it, just like we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, my behavior has started to change. That's a good example of self-awareness. So self-awareness isn't something that you just wake up one day and say, oh, I'm self-aware. No, that's not how it works. We need to get really connected with other people that are self-aware so that they can teach us how to become self-aware. That's how it worked for me. There was a group of people that taught me how to become self-aware. And we actually at Time for a 10, we have a community Zoom that's completely free that our clients can come to and work with other clients that are on this journey of self-awareness. And we all teach each other self-awareness and we learn from each other's experiences, because there's a reason why there's 8 billion people on the planet. Everybody has something to offer and something to teach me. And it's just beautiful how that works. So awareness is, self-awareness is not just it's an action statement to become self-aware.
We're so indoctrinated with the dopamine fix.
Yes.
And this is the plight. And when you say 80% of people are not really aware or self-aware, it's because we have so many attention grabbers that we don't have to be self-aware. Because sometimes I want to say that since we haven't learned to be self-aware from an early age, and I want to say it begins, let's say, before kindergarten, because we're now observing our external environment more than we're observing our internal environment. And now we're also indoctrinated and we're taught how to become slaves to a system to get approval. And by the desire to get approval, constant approval, we lose our identity. We lose who we are. And this is why I say, just take a survey. In kindergarten, you have 30 artists. In the 6th grade, you have 3. And it's because they've been told that their art or their work is not beautiful. It's not pretty. It looks ugly. But, Picasso, I want to say it's Picasso, that before he really became famous, the reason that he wasn't famous is because he was drawing everything like everything was seen. But when he started putting eyeballs on one side of the face, 2 eyeballs on one side of the face and the nose in a different place, that's when his work became exceptional and sought after. And he became true to himself, not trying to imitate other people. And that self-awareness was, he had a different mindset, a different creativity that he wanted to expose and express. And the more that we learn how to do that, and this is where conformity comes in, when I hear young people say, I'm not going to conform. I'm going to be me. I'm going to dress the way that I want to dress. I'm going to do the things that I want to do. But what they're doing really is they look like their friends and they're conforming. They just don't want to admit that. And that in reality is something that we all do. And I want to say we all do that because we want that acceptance. But when we become self-aware of what we're doing, that's when the beauty of life and the essence of who we are really pops.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's consequences. It's like, think it through. Am I going to say yes to this opportunity? Am I going to add or do this? But let me think it through. What's that going to look like when it's done? And sometimes well, not now, but maybe still at times, but I didn't think anything through. I just, in the moment, it sounded good. You release some dopamine by your offering to me in my brain, and I was like, yes. And then I got home. What did I do? So now it's like, give me 24 hours. I'll let you know. People are like, I know people. And then when I said that to a guy, and I said, well, I need 24 hours. I need to bring it. I didn't say this to the person. I need to bring it to my higher self and just make sure my body, it is aligning with that own self. And then I called the person and I said, it's a yes. And that I have never had someone say to me, let me think about this for 24 hours. He goes, that I was a little like, well, I don't understand. Why would he do that? It's either yes or no. I said, yeah, but in the moment, sometimes when it's a little bigger, ask or situation or opportunity, I gotta take a few moments to step back, think it through, pray about it, allow my body to say it's the right thing, because the gut will tell us. Well, tell me, I should say, because it likes me better. Just kidding. So we also have an issue with external pressures. So it could be judgments from family, friends, and things, because we've changed a bit. We're working on coming from that part of us, but that part of us isn't, other people might not be living from. And so it gets a little weird sometimes, like, oh, you don't eat that? Why not? Oh, why don't you do that? And so that's a bit, so it's like, screw it. I'm just going to do what they do. It's like a herd. Most people just are like, where are you? I don't know. You better ask the people I'm hanging out with. I'm at happy hour again. I didn't want to come, but everyone was going. And that's so fun. Everyone, 8 billion people. That's a big ass bar. And then we got social. Social is just devastating to teens and all that. But and it's like, gosh, I only got 4 likes. I guess that was not the right action. I'm never going to do it again. And it's like, but when it's coming like this podcast, I'm not looking to overnight success and have millions of subscribers and followers. And I mean, that would be great, but it's coming from my true self. And I trust in that. And I rely on that. And I know if I stay on that beam, this power, higher power, is very patient, but always on time.
I love that, Charlie. I love that. You're talking about authenticity and going inward and your true self. And I could talk about that for hours. I won't, but I could talk about that for hours. And taking the time to actually go inward and ask the question and wait for the answer. Sometimes the answer doesn't come right away. I go inward and I ask my higher self a question, and it doesn't always answer, which means I have to wait and sit in that discomfort of just not knowing. I want to take a second to go through there's lots of chats here and say hi to everybody. Hi, Carrie and Kevin and Kitted Dog. Welcome, Cassidy and Kate. And somebody's saying Standalion is in the house. Must be one of your fans, Stan.
That's going to haunt me forever, isn't
Yeah,
it?
I want the whole world to know Standalion's in the house. That's great.
And
Oh, wow.
you let them grow in your yard. It just fit.
I love it. I think we talked about that in the first podcast we had you on. That's great. So I want to say good morning to everybody and thank you for all the comments. We're really glad you're here. Carrie is saying that an old friend would tell the story of when he was new to recovery. He would always say, "Oh, I know." That was me too. And his sponsor told him to turn it around in his head and say, "I know nothing." And that is beautiful. And when I remember saying, "I know, I know, I know," and it was because I didn't know. And I was embarrassed that I didn't know. And
Yeah.
it was also a way to shut down the conversation. So that's really insightful, Carrie. Thank you for that. I wanted to comment on, the dopamine hit that Stanley was talking about. And, the people pleasing, having a conversation and agreeing with somebody when you really don't agree. It's a dopamine hit, like you feel accepted. And a lot of it, in my experience with life, has been, that seeking of validation from the outside to feel worthy on the inside. And it's a hole that just never gets filled. It's a hole that never gets filled. And we joke at Time for a 10 because, a lot of times the theme will come up of, there's 99 people in the room and 100 people in the room and 99 of them tell you you're beautiful and wonderful and one doesn't. And the one that doesn't is the one that I'm going to think about for weeks, right? And that's kind of the situation we're talking about where that dopamine hit, that validation, that acceptance from the outside for many and for me for a long time was more important than what I thought of myself on the inside. And then as I started going through the coaching work and changing and becoming self-aware and learning these tools, I realized that really the only thing that matters is how I feel about myself. And how I feel about myself, I'm going to mirror outward. So not only am I going to project that outward into my world, that's what I'm going to attract back inward. So if I'm not being authentic, if I'm not being loving, compassionate, caring, kind to myself, understanding to myself, I love what Stan said about, am I better today than I was yesterday? Am I meeting the goal I set for myself? Not comparing, but going inward.
Mhm.
And then helping yourself. Like with coaching and with all the videos that we do, and we're on a lot of social media. And initially I wanted to get views, and that was defining whether my videos were good or not. Not anymore. If I help one person a day, that's my goal. If I help one person a day, it's a great day. And sometimes that one person is me.
Mm-hmm.
It's me. So it's always a good day. And when I approach the world with that kind of attitude, I grow and expand because I'm not limiting myself in any way. And I can have that energy of the creator of all that is flow through me without having this kind of obstacle course of junk to get through. It can just flow right through because I'm not blocking it. It's another way of saying that.
Yeah, and it's the appreciation of the different elements, the different people that are in our life. So yesterday for dinner, I took my plate and I put everything on it and I put it in the refrigerator. And I was waiting and I was waiting and it was waiting, but it didn't beep. And I opened the refrigerator up and it was still cold. And I thought, what a stupid refrigerator. It is not doing what I want it to do. Well, this is sometimes what we do with ourselves is we put ourselves into an environment and we don't perform or we don't express our identity because we're in the wrong environment. And if we want to get what we want to get, we look at the environment that's around us and look what we're creating. And this is why I find myself, in the presence of coaches that know more than I do, that cause me to look inside and see what else I can do. And then I can become very self-honest and I can become even deeper in my authenticity with myself, and I can become who I already am, but I just haven't been able to expose it yet. And there's so many programs, and one of the things that I do is I help people rewire their brain, and this is through neuroencoding. It's like, what is the program that's gone in, and let's take the target program, trade it, and turn it into a software program so that we can actually become. We do updates on our phone all the time. Why aren't we doing them with ourselves? Because nobody has really said, hey, have you plugged in today? Have you recharged your batteries?
That's a good way to help us stay on a beam. I don't know if it's the beam. I don't know what the beam is, but a beam could be different for all people. Could be, it's just that once again, we don't feel restless. We don't feel irritated throughout the day. We don't feel disconnected. We don't feel alone. We don't feel angry. We don't feel this isn't fair. Life sucks. Everything's so hard for me. That story dissipates as we come from that true self, because our bodies were made to be healthy. I mean, we have what, 37 plus trillion cells that just want us to thrive, and they get their information or their dopamine from the food we put in our bodies. So there might be a little clue in that. But we are our creators built us to thrive, to be happy, joyous, and free, and live a full life, and do all these wonderful things. So if that isn't it, if that's, if we're feeling down, depressed, anxious, a little bit sorry for ourselves, and we're not taking responsibility, what does that mean? That means absolutely everything in this world, I am responsible. That means that I have a part in, not stuff I don't. I used to take on the stuff I wasn't even involved with, and I got angry. Fancied, some might call it. And that is just amazing that the shift, this transformation will happen. But it's got to start with what I'm doing. I mean, if you've been coming to this podcast for 20 weeks, 20 weeks flew, Brenda. And you've learned some principles, and well, okay, I shouldn't put it on you. Me. I would go to these types of things and I would get inspired and I'd learn a few things. But I didn't implement them too much. I didn't have a person that could help hold me accountable and maybe hear the plan on how to implement them and maybe make some adjustments to help it work better for me. No, I took it on my own and I failed. I have a lot of shelf help. I have things that I haven't even opened, but my God, the cover of that book looked amazing. And just by reading that cover, I did not transform, damn it. So, we got to look at what's going on. Just get on. You don't have to post it on all the social. Just go to the mirror, turn on good lighting and say, is this working? Am I getting out of bed in the morning going, yes, I am grateful. I get to. If that's what I believe, that's how our Creator designed us. That's how we should be springing into action throughout our day. And each day, life best lived is life by design, right? So, but that design must come from our true self.
Absolutely, Charlie. The important thing to remember is that we're not supposed to be doing this alone. That's why there's 8 billion people on the planet. We are all supposed to be helping each other with our unique gifts and talents to thrive. We're supposed to be teaching each other, relying on each other. Even if you don't have a coach right now or you're considering getting a coach, in the meantime, pick up the phone. Talk to somebody about how you're feeling. Don't keep that stuff all bottled up inside until you're ready to do the work. At least be talking to somebody about how you're feeling and what your struggles are, so you're not carrying that load all by yourself. And I can't speak enough about how valuable having somebody to talk to is, and relying on the expertise of somebody else's experience. Like, I use Stan for, I was having problems with my knee, and I know Stan is a physical therapy guy. And so I gave him a call because I met him on this podcast. And it turned out to be, it's not really my knee, it's something else. And I'm working with him on all these exercises. And I wasn't able to Peloton for it was 2 months, and I've been able to Peloton now because I reached out to Stan. I relied on Stan for his expertise to help me with that. And it actually worked. And the same thing with Charlie. When I am struggling with any kind of emotional awareness, or I have a disturbance, and I'm a coach and I have a coaching team, and coaches need coaches too. I tell people that all the time. Coaches need coaches too. So if you're a therapist, or you're a counselor, or you're a coach, whatever, we need coaches too. And I call Charlie, and Charlie helps me through situations that I couldn't have helped myself through on my own, because my conditioned mind can't fix my conditioned mind. So I just can't stress enough how grateful I am to have these people in my life that I can reach out to, my coaching team, friends, people in AA, Stan, Charlie, the list goes on, that help me to become my authentic self on a daily basis. Because I don't always jump out of bed saying, woohoo, I'm so happy to be Brenda today. That's not how I wake up every single day. The days that I don't, I need some help, and it's there and available for me. I'm not unique in any way. It's available for you too.
Yeah, the thing of it is we don't see what we are used to seeing, because we become oblivious to our normal. And if we're looking for the outside to social media, I mean, so many people get depressed when they go to social media, because what they're experiencing is, hey, they're not getting likes. And like you said, you can have 99 people that compliment you, and then the one person that says, hey, your button is in the wrong spot. And all of a sudden, you forgot the 99 things that people said, and you remember that, and you criticize yourself. You beat yourself up. And when we're looking to people that don't know us, I mean, really don't know us, for validation, we've given our power away. And this is why the value of having this community, this connection of people that are not only authentic, but have integrity, because there's a big difference. You can be authentic and be ugly. Okay. I'll be nice and say it that way. Or you can be authentic and have integrity. And when you have integrity and authenticity together, now you've got a combination that cannot be pushed off. It's not built on a foundation of sand. It's built on a foundation of concrete, and it's deeply seated. And so when we understand who we are, and sometimes we need somebody that cares about us to look inside and go, these are the values that I see. How do you see those? Well, that's just normal. That everybody does that, but not everybody does that. And so, it's kind of like Standalion. Now, here's the thing about Standalion. The dandelions grew in my yard. There's more nutrition out of a dandelion leaf than there is in kale, in spinach, and there's more nutrients that come from that, and it grows free. Now, don't put pesticide on your ground. Now, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have had dandelions because I wanted my yard to be pristine, but I didn't realize what I was leaving, what I was destroying. And this is the same thing that we do in our life. What is the natural strengths that we have? And once we learn that, once you know that, you can't unknow it. And then you make those evaluations and you say, you know what? I'd rather wear something that is more real to me than put on a suit that doesn't fit my design. And we can use example after example, but I don't want to be somebody else. I want to be the best me. And sometimes I need somebody from the outside to point out all those best things about me so that I can begin to appreciate and become self-aware again.
Well, this has been great. So I just a little warning I want to put in here. Brenda said, pick up the phone and call. And that's couldn't agree more, because I do call Brenda and I talk to Stanley quite often. But I know who I'm calling. I know the life they're living. I know the principles they live by. I know that they take responsibility and they come from a true self type of place. And the only thing they're taking a look at my situation is they're not in it. They're not joining forces. They're outside of it and just helping me see what I can't see to resolve to get through. But that isn't the case for some people, actually most. So if I had a situation, I called, I don't want to say it, but someone around my area here, and I said, yeah, this is what happened to me. And I'm pissed off. And dude, get your bat. I'll pick you up in 10 minutes and we'll go fix it. Well, that is asking somebody for help. And, but it isn't the help I needed to move through it. Even though part of me likes that solution. So just know who you're reaching out to, that you not so much you look up, but you like, they have a clean life. They're living in a way that you could get some good, healthy advice or guidance from. And yeah, this has been this is a lifelong, this is a practice. It isn't, for some reason, it's more of my go-to, but it's like, wait a minute, I have to stop myself, because my most practiced way of living wasn't coming from that space. It was coming from what you think of me. And I need to perform well, and I need to show up. Doesn't matter if it's not coming from my true self. I only care about what I look like to the outside world, because like you said, Brenda, there was a hole inside. And, I wasn't able to fill it. I needed to fill it through outside forces, and I don't anymore, for the most part. It is nice to get a compliment. It is nice, all that great stuff, if you've earned it. And you both have earned one today. It was great to have you on today's podcast. And you guys good? Could we bring this to an end?
Sounds good to me. Great podcast. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Standy Lion.
Yes, you're welcome.
Go out in your yard and chew some leaves. I'll see you guys. But of course, please share, like, and whatever the other thing says. Subscribe. And we'll see you next Saturday.
Bye, everybody.